Go back now to that Supreme Court decision on immigration. The highest court in the U.S. is evenly divided on the issue of immigration. It means that President Obama's plan to provide a path to citizenship for more than 4 million undocumented Americans will not take effect. The president urged Congress to fill the vacancy on the nation's highest court, and avoid these deadlock decisions going forward. Take a listen.
With respect to the Republicans, I think what it tells you is that if you keep on blocking judges from getting on the bench, then courts can't issue decisions. And what that means is then you're going to have the status quo frozen, and we're not going to be able to make progress on some very important issues.
Constitutional attorney Pate joins me now. As the president was saying, this proves that vacancy on the Supreme Court is hugely important.
Right. I think he's absolutely correct. What happens when the justices are split on an issue like this is whatever the lower court decided stands as the law. So the Supreme Court was unable to issue any kind of an opinion. The actual order is just one sentence saying the court is split. Therefore, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, their decision in the case will be the law of the land.
So for the millions of undocumented Americans who are living in the shadows, who can't work, I mean, what does this ruling mean for them now? Uncertainty.
They're still caught in that legal limbo. They are here, they're not being prosecuted, they're not being actively sought out and removed at this point, but because the Supreme Court rejected this case, there is the possibility that that could happen.
But President Obama did say, he reiterated in his speech, that his priority is to go after undocumented immigrants who are criminals,
right,
not people who are just sort of trying to make a living.
And that's true as long as he's in office. But if there's a change in the presidency, if Donald Trump is elected, he has already indicated not just his willingness, but his desire to go after folks who are undocumented and now not subject to any legal protection.
So let's assume, I don't know what's going to happen in November, but let's assume that Hillary Clinton wins. Do these executive actions somehow have a path forward? I mean, do these immigrants, undocumented immigrants, have any sort of hope going forward?
Well, the status of the law as a result of the decision today is that the injunction stays in place. The federal government cannot change the way they are dealing with this particular set of undocumented immigrants in the country. So what I think is going to happen if we're going to have any kind of permanent solution is Congress is going to have to act. They are going to have to make a final decision as to whether or not we're going to give protection to the parents of undocumented children in this country.
Yeah, a lot of Republicans are actually saying that this sort of proves that one man, even the President of the United States, cannot change the laws.
Well, that was certainly their argument. I mean, the White House responded saying, well, we're not really changing the law. It's just that Congress has left the door open. It's very vague as to how we're supposed to treat these folks. And so it's within our discretion as the executive to determine how we enforce this law. And so as president, I'm going to instruct our officers not to take action and deport these folks. So the White House said we weren't really changing the law. We were simply interpreting it.
So if Hillary Clinton appoints a sort of left-leaning Supreme Court justice, assuming she wins, can they take up a similar case? Can she institute or introduce, rather, more sort of executive actions on this issue?
That's a great case. This case can actually come back to the Supreme Court.
This exact case?
Absolutely, because all they've done at this point is sustain the preliminary injunction. The case has not been finally decided. It will go back to the district judge in Brownsville, Texas, who will then have to make a final decision on the constitutionality of this particular program. And so I am certain that that will be challenged by the government. So we may see this very case again in front of the Supreme Court.
But for President Obama, for him, though, this particular case, it's over.
Right. He will not be in office by the time this case comes back, by the time they have a new Supreme Court justice. So he is not going to be able to implement what he considered to be one of his most important legacies.
Yeah, this has a huge impact on President Obama, how he'll be remembered, his legacy, etc., right?
Absolutely. And I think it'll also have political ramifications, not just for President Obama, but for Congress as well, because many Americans see this as the result of inaction. Inaction both on immigration and the refusal to consider a new Supreme Court justice during the remainder of Obama's term.
Right. Okay, Pate, live for us there. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate that.